Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is Monday, March 25th. This will be our chart lesson for today, and it's about 12:30. I'm done for the day. We really had a strong down channel here, strong downtrend. You can kind of see what I believe is the bigger channel, and you can see there were some smaller channels within the bigger channel, and they came into play just as well. So. Um, and I actually meant to mark this last trade. This was the last trade I took right here. And that's just a breakout pullback short. So, um, and it's coming off this channel. So, but we'll talk about all those. So, for some reason I forgot to mark that one. Let's talk about what we started out with. I mean, it's pretty obvious. This is kind of a trading range. Did we know this was going to happen? No. We had no idea this was going to happen. But this is not a strong, by the time the market opened, this is not a strong uptrend. Um, and I got several emails today. Most of them were positive. Most of you found the trend today and got on with it. But some of you, a couple of you had an issue. You were thinking, you were calling this is pretty strong here, but you got to remember this is in the overnight. Sometimes that happens, but by the time the market opened, um, really you're on both sides of the EMA, and you've got a failed break above. You got two pushes higher. Both of them failed. Look, this one didn't go very far above that high, and then this one just barely got above that one, and then you're making a lower low here. Um, yeah, there's a chance you might get a retest. And really, this is just kind of a trading range in here. We had a little failed break lower, a little reversal patterns. This was a nice long. Did we know what was going to happen up here? No, we didn't know this sell-off was coming. But this is not a strong trend. So you can't be entering this close to previous resistance across here. And if you notice, that's really where the resistance was, right across there. And you got a couple of failed breaks out of that. And then your support was right here. And then you got a little breakout pullback short here. And then it was, basically off to the races to the downside. And we hit the lower side of the channel here. And I got the channel off these first two little swing bars here and drew it down, and I drug it down and it seemed to fit, and you can kind of see those little gaps right there. That's generally a sign that there's some kind of trend coming through there. What's happening is prices kind of gap over those or jump over those. So anytime you see those, you might look, and if you draw this, let's just redraw this right through those, and you can see it goes right through there, and basically right through again right there. Now let's copy that and drag it up and see what that looks like. And that's the way you can do this a lot of times. And you can see it still. Let's just take the other one off and we'll use the new one the way I found it. And you can see this still coming into perfect play right here all the way down. So, that's how you got to do this stuff. You got to play around with it. It takes experience. It's just like everything else. With chart time, you'll start to get it. So how far are we going to go down? I don't know exactly, where it's going to go, but I'd be looking for a target similar to that until we get a reversal of some kind. So, I'm looking for maybe 1534. Are we done here and we're going to go higher? Possibly. We could just go into a trading range or whatever. But we still haven't hit this lower side again, so it wouldn't surprise me. And look where that's at, right down here on this lower side with an equal leg. So this is what I'm thinking, but don't, if you're still trading, follow the price action. Don't be going by what I tell you, because I could be wrong, and things could change before we get way down there. So, but let's go back and talk about the trades. Again, you got a little reversal pattern. That's a reversal bar, a little failed break below. And again, those gaps are usually there for a reason. But here's a couple of more reasons why. Let me show you this. Why you may not have, you shouldn't have been thinking strong trend. This is not a strong trend. Looks like this just keeps going, and a strong trend up, we would never have gotten back this far below the EMA. It just doesn't, that's not a strong trend. When you're on both sides of the EMA, that's generally trading range. And so I was thinking trading range. So I was trading this like a trading range. Um, Nice long here. You come back up, you're thinking that we're probably going up here. But here were the last highs. First you had the ones here, and then the next ones were here. And if you look at it, really, when you stopped right there, then we couldn't get above that. And if you kind of drag your line down there, you see there's kind of resistance across there. And now that makes sense. And you see that was the high. And then we're kind of on both sides of that. Then we're kind of on both sides of it. And then we can't get above it. And there's a trap over here that you might have considered going short. But really, when you're on both sides of the EMA and you get something like that, it's probably best to stay out. But I'll show you a reason that you could have gone short here. Again, you had the long here, you ride it back. I really was looking at first for prices to go up here, but you see we just didn't make it. And when we started getting hung up here, you got to exit. It's not worth hanging on. And you definitely don't want to be looking for a long right there. Hopefully you can see that. And I know that there were some people that were thinking long right there, because guess what? We've been trending up forever. But look at the difference here compared to here. Notice that we're steadily going, and then we finally start to get below the EMA, then we're on both sides. It goes into a range. That's a range. But when we're trending up, notice how you really, most of your bars stay above. That's not even really a good example. Here's one coming down. You can see how everything's below the EMA. Another range. And this was similar. This today was similar to, I don't know if this was Monday last week. I don't think that was Monday, but it's very similar to that day. That was FOMC day, because I remember that price action now. But anyway, hopefully you understand. But here's some other things. Not only that was this price, were prices on both sides of the EMA, but guess what? Prices opened right here at 8:30 where the close was here. So there's a gap right there. So you're looking for prices to probably fill that gap, that overnight gap from when the 8:30 opens to where it closed last week. Look, we usually come back and fill that, but today we just kept going lower. And I kind of attribute most of the sell-off, if you go look at what the dollar's doing, the dollar really had a reversal day and a big rally today. There's a lot of crazy things going over in Europe with Cyprus and all that, and you don't want to be trading off any of that. Don't pay any attention to it. But if the dollar's rallying, there's a good chance the market's selling off, and the market is rallying. And or the dollar's rallying, so most of the futures indexes are going to be, stock indexes are going to be selling off because they kind of move inverse. So again, don't trade by that, but it's just little clues to be thinking about. But let me show you what happened here. Once you went into this overlap, no reason to go long right there. Definitely not. There's too many overlapping bars. There is a little bit of a trap, but look, it ends as negative, and then the next one doesn't break above it, so no reason to go long right there. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 overlapping bars. At least one of them's a doji. Actually, multiple ones are doji. So it's just dangerous going long right there, and you don't want to do it. And then you get a little failed second entry short kind of right there. Actually, you got a new high, but it's close enough to look like a two-legged pullback to the EMA. But guess what? You got to get long right there where you're getting all this resistance. And that's dangerous because this is not a strong trend. This is a little trading range. And guess what? It fails and turns down. And again, you don't really want to be going short because everything's back above the EMA right here. But when we made that little second entry long right there, I could see you getting trapped there before I could see you getting trapped here. But still, just not a good place to be going long because you got all that resistance and then it turns down. So the only place you might have considered entering was short right there. And even then, I don't like it because it usually snaps back, but it was just the market. They had everybody trapped and they started selling. And you can see how fast and quickly that fell and made another new low. So now we're making lower highs and lower lows, and you got a lot of people trapped. Then you guess what? You go into this little bit of congestion right below the former little double bottom there, and you break one tick higher, and you got this little trend line possibly coming down through here if you drew it off those first couple of swings using the closes, and you turn down right there. So that's a breakout pullback short. Pretty good setup after a move down like that, because you want to be at least thinking you're probably going to get a leg like that. And so you see that puts prices way down here, and that's really a two-legged pullback to the EMA. It's a little harder to see. One leg up, pull back, second leg up, a little reversal bar. No reason not to take that if you saw it, and off to the races. You know, again, you don't know that you're going to get this, but if it gives you the setup, plus we're looking for prices to come down to right here. Not only, let me show you that. Not only was this leg a perfect measured move back down to fill the gap, and look where the gap was right there. That's a perfect measure move. So that's what I was looking for. And see how we made that little doji right there? So not only was I looking for that, a lot of other people were, because that's where a lot of people started exiting right there, because see that little doji. But the sellers were in charge, and they said, no, we're not done yet. And they just kept on selling. And it gets really hairy going long right down here. You don't want to be trying to go long after a big sell-off. And now you really got kind of two measured legs down, and that caught a lot of people off guard. And guess what? You got this channel working down here, and we bounced right off of it for a failed second entry long, a chance to go short right there. But really, because they saw this overlap and that, let me make this bigger, and all those dojis, you couldn't really go short out of that. You could have gone short right there, but you got to figure you're probably going to snap back. And guess what? We snapped back. And so when it went below that bar, it's a breakout pullback short. It's getting really close to these lows, and you know, you got some support over here, but it's far enough down to this support that you can scalp out of there. And so if you saw that one and took it, it's not the greatest setup, but it fits the rules. It's a breakout pullback short. It's a second entry short. You got to go to a smaller time frame to really see all that, but it's there. And eventually, if you get enough experience, you'll see that on this chart. And then guess what? We make a new low and two legs up to a new high, a two-legged pullback to the EMA in a strong downtrend. You had this little channel working down. That's the first break. You got to figure we're going to retest this low right here. And guess what? That's exactly what happens. We run down to a new low, and then we get the correction. And if you could find something down here off this low side, that might help you find this upper. But if you just drew it off those first two swings, and you'll see it there a lot like that, then you would have known where to do this. But again, it's too dangerous going short. And this is really kind of a repeat pattern of this up here. You kind of get this stuff up at the resistance. But you were better off to wait on a better setup here. So you get this big move, pull back, then a failed second entry long. Notice you got a new high, first entry long. We come down, second entry long, it fails. That's a breakout pullback to test that right there. Great place to go short. And it took a few minutes because this channel, notice these little channels that we're in, coming down, going up. And you finally broke it here. You tried to retest it, but it couldn't get above this bigger channel. This is a more important one. And then now you got this little channel, and you come back and test it again, and it turns down. But you don't really have a lot of room right there, and now you got a lot of overlap. It gets you out of this trade, but no runners here. More than likely, you probably got stopped out on your runners. But then guess what? One leg, first entry short, pull back, second entry short right there, and off to the races it goes. We kind of broke the 10 line there, but look, you got two legs down to a new low, and now you come back and test this, and there was another entry right here, right off the, notice those two little matching things. That would have been a great place to drop a limit order, and you'd already be out with another scalp, and you got a runner that's heading lower here. Now, will it come back? I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it was still a pretty good setup right there. But hopefully, that's why I keep telling you, draw your, in case you don't find the bigger channels, and sometimes they're hard. This was not easy to find. It wasn't hard to find, but it wasn't easy. So just draw your smaller ones, and it still keeps you on the right side for the most part. You might have got fooled right here, but you should have seen the breakout pullback short right there. Easy trade. It took it a few minutes to kind of work on down, but it came back and got the runners right there, unfortunately. And but you got another chance to enter here, and guess what? It didn't come back and get the runners. So then you ride it all the way down, and you should have had a measured thing here, and you're looking for that to come back down here, like we showed earlier. So the trend is down, so you're just looking for reasons to enter. And basically, pullbacks to the trend line or the EMA are just about always good entries on a strong trend. And hopefully you can see the difference between this move down. That's a strong trend. This is, this is not a strong trend because we're flipping back and forth to both sides and you're finding strong resistance right there. So what happens is we start to get a lot of ranges like this right here, and people get to thinking range, and then guess what? It starts to look like a range, and then it trends and it throws people off. And so then today they'll get to thinking, okay, range, and tomorrow they'll get to thinking trend, and then tomorrow it'll start ranging again. And so you got to be able to recognize what's going on, and look how flat that EMA. Now it may not have been that flat really when you were up here, but it was pointing down when you were up here. And you got to enter in down at these low spots. You don't want to be going long back up here near the strong resistance when you're on both sides of the EMA like that. And that's why I drew that in green. The only way you could have entered here was on that failed second entry long right there that turned back down. And then what you got to do is you got to have your order when it went higher first and then turns down. You put your order right there, a limit sell order, and it would have been a little hairy at first because it kind of closed back up in there, but notice how it took on off. And most of those traps are going to work in your favor if you see them. Just like right here, you got all these matching highs. It breaks one tick higher, turns down, goes short right there, boom. There's another failed second entry long. Turns down, closes on slow. Again, it was better to wait until you got this little breakout pullback and then go short there. I really should have drawn this one in green because we've already had two legs down. You got a lot of overlapping bars, but it fits the criteria. Just very few of these are going to fail in a strong trend. And you can see when it does, you don't get a setup like right here. Notice how we never got a chance to go short. It just kept working higher till it got to the back up here to the bigger trend line. And now we may have a failed break higher that turns back down. And you see we got those matching lows across there. Are we going to go higher, or will it turn into a breakout pullback short? I don't know. We just got to wait and see. But if you get the setup with the trend, you got to consider it. So anyway, that was really it for today. You should have made plenty of money even if you didn't do anything up here. Once we started trending down, and then this correction probably throws people off. Draw that trend line. You can see there we broke it. We pulled back up and hit that same kind of resistance area right across there. And you can see that. And then you can see kind of where we had, and this is just coming back to kind of test these previous highs in here. Notice there was a breakout right here that we never really retested. And guess what this was? That's all that was a retest of that area. So you got to draw your lines. It really, really helps. And, I'd be amazed how many times people will send me their charts and they don't have any lines drawn on them. So, just like right here, you kind of got this resistance right across here. We broke above it. We came back and tested. Now look, we're turning down and we got this bigger trend line here. So we may get a chance to go short. It may go higher. We'll just have to see. You got to wait on the setup. It looked pretty good for a minute right there, but now it's starting. Now that's why you don't want to sneak in early, because it was really looking like it was going to turn down, and guess what? Now it's bouncing again. So don't try to sneak in early. And just trying to think if there's anything else that's worth discussing here today. That's most of the big thing, is that you just got to realize that this is a strong downtrend and you better stay with the trend. Even right here off this trend line, notice that it went into this stuff, but if you went short right there, you'd have still been fine as long as you kept your stop above that. But I wouldn't have entered here. You really need to wait on the second entry, and by the time the second entry came off the highs, notice it ended as a doji, and there's just too much overlap, because what happens, it breaks lower and it snaps back, but then it turns down and it's a breakout pullback short. So pretty good entry. And you can see again, there's no short ever triggered over here, so there's no reason to be going short yet. You could have gone short here maybe, but that was it. And that's not even the best bar, but I like that setup right there coming off that line. The place to go short was right there with a limit order, and you're out easy. But because we're coming up so strongly, and notice there's no breaks even below any of these bars till right here, that's not a good sign. You want a good setup bar. And even this one, notice it didn't close on its low, and we're above the EMA, so you can't go short way down here because you're getting too close to that, which we've got double bar support right there. We really never pulled back. Well, we did. I guess we broke out and pulled back right there, so that's kind of a breakout pullback long back up. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get another chance to go short over here. Just have to wait and see what happens. So, but anyway, this was the key, I think, that based on the emails I got, where most people, got tricked. And just remember, when you're on, notice this failed. Notice we broke out there and it failed and came back. And we broke out again, it failed and came back. And then it makes a lower low here. That's what a reversal pattern looks like. And then you make a lower high and it's off to the races. That's what a reversal pattern looks like. And that's the way it does. Notice here we made this double bottom, but we never made a higher high. So this is a lower high after these failed breaks here after a lower low. So then you got to be thinking another leg down like that right there. And we made it right here and bounced, and then we came back and tested it and kept going. So, and so you notice how this ended as a doji. That's not a good setup right there to go short below. Even though that'll be a nice second entry short coming off a double top, I don't like that bar right there at all. It's not a good sign. It's a one bar trading range. So there's a good chance it'll tick lower and trap. Now if it goes out the high side and gives you a good reversal bar, yeah. But if it goes short right there first, nope, no way I'm taking that during the lunch hour, because we may make another leg up just like that right there. And that brings us way back up here. So a lot of it has to do with your setup bar. And the signal bar, you need a good signal bar in most cases. Like that's a great signal bar. It broke lower, it turns, it closes on its very high, and then it ticks up. And somebody keeps telling me that they don't have time to get in the trades. Okay, I got interrupted there, and it probably seems like a blink on the video, but it's been about 15 or 20 minutes, so I have no idea. And I made a note to try to remember what I was talking about, and I have no idea what we were talking about. So we're about 23 minutes into this, so I think I'm going to wrap it up and call it a day. Hey, let's just go back over here and see. Oh, yeah, see there? This is a great example. Look how prices never triggered lower. Look how we're going higher now. So that's a great example of why you got to wait on the right kind of setup. And you can see, even when we broke out, we never really got, you might have thought about that bar right there, but it never broke below it. The first bar it breaks below is right here, and it's still not a very good, it's still got a little green tint, and look what happens. It goes one tick lower, and then that's definitely not a good short bar. And so you got to wait on the right setup. It always helps, especially after you've come up short here. Notice how here's a clue that the market's getting a little stronger. We overshot twice here, and notice how we couldn't get back down here this time. I wouldn't have expected this, but it wouldn't have surprised me at all to make an equal leg, and I guarantee you that's probably why that little doji's right there. There were a lot of people taking their profits right there, but there's still too much buying, and you can see that's exactly where the market went to. So that's why people are taking profit right there, and that's why you end in that little doji. But notice we still worked higher and still there. That's not a real great setup bar because we closed 2 ticks off the low, but we're probably going to come back to this EMA soon. But I don't even like that setup. You want a better setup than that, and this is a good example right here. Even though it never ticked lower to trigger um, any entries right there, that's why you don't want to sneak in early too. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Now here we go. We're probably coming on back. But again, I didn't like that bar because it didn't close all the way on its low. So just really not a good setup. The only thing I do see is that we pushed higher twice here, or three times, once, twice, three times, and we're way away from the end. We're overdue to come back. So anyway, but I'm going to wrap it up. The big part of the trading day is over in my opinion, and it's late in the day, and that's another reason I don't like to enter late in the day, because at some point a lot of trends will reverse, and you just don't know exactly when they're going to reverse. There's clues like us coming up shorter of the trend channel and then breaking above it and pulling back a little bit, and still wouldn't be surprised if we don't retest this low right here, because we really hadn't had a break of that. So it wouldn't surprise me to get a retest of the low, but it wouldn't surprise me if it takes a while, or if we don't quite make it before the close. Just have to see what happens there, but I'm not going to hang around on the video to see. Again, I'm just going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.